You sure you want to do this?
She's still out there, Tax.
Hi everyone, RFG here with a review for Hollowbody, a third-person survival horror game developed and published by Headware Games, available on PC. Inspired by survival horror games from the early 2000s, you'll be exploring and surviving your way in the not-too-distant future through the desolate Exclusion Zone. Decades after a catastrophic event in the coast of the British Isles, an expedition crew is sent to investigate the cause of the incident. You begin the game as Sasha, through an introduction that gets you a bit acquainted with some of the backstory, the controls, and camera. While you can choose whether you use 3D or tank controls, the game uses a classic camera system where it follows behind the character and will adjust automatically to control following them. You can slightly adjust the angle, but it's a very small window of movement. When making sharp turns, the camera can be a bit slow to adjust, but you can manually command the camera to center behind you. In another tie to a staple of classic survival horror titles, in certain cases the camera will be placed in static angles with no way to control it, but in most cases it'll follow behind you. After the intro, you'll be placed in the role of Mica, as she crash lands into the Exclusion Zone to search for Sasha, who has now been missing for days. Her first priority is to regain access to her radio, and needs to find her way to high ground. Nothing really changes in terms of controls or camera, but you're now able to engage with the environment. Navigating your way through the outdoors of the Exclusion Zone isn't all that complicated. It's a fairly linear path without many real diversions, and the direction leads you to your first item to find. You start off in an already damaged state, as your display will showcase, but using the nearby medical repair spray in your item menu heals you to fine status. Looking further through the menu, you'll find that you have a map and document subsection. Your map is a simple 3D display that does a good job of detailing where you are and showing the area around you. It can also highlight doors nearby. Obstacles in the area can be displayed, or inaccessible doors may be highlighted in red. Files, like many other games in the genre, will be stored in the Docs submenu. Most important files you find will be stored here, as some may have hints for puzzles. Going further through your item menu, you'll see that you already have a weapon. Equipping your weapon automatically sends you out of the menu. No matter the weapon, you'll have to hold the aim weapon button to target enemies and use it. You're able to aim and move around, as Mica will automatically lock onto an enemy when holding the aim button. You have a separate button to reload your guns. Using the weapon button without the aim button lets Mica stomp her enemies or some small crates scattered around. Depending on your input layout, you can quickly equip and unequip either your melee weapon or gun, instantly access your map, or do a 180-degree turn. Even though I never found any reason to unequip a weapon, it is nice to not have to go through the main menu to switch between melee and ranged. Some things about the item menu you should be aware of are that you have no inventory management to juggle with here. You're never burdened about having to worry about space. Pay attention to each item, as some may need to be inspected or combined. Making your way through the outdoors doesn't take much effort, and despite the creepy vibes, getting to the apartment area to reach high ground is when the game starts to show off its other survival horror influences. Getting in is simple enough, but the apartment itself puts the item-based puzzles on display. You'll often come across locked doors that need a key to bypass, but a lot of your time in this area is just finding that key item that helps you progress. You do get a few logic puzzles thrown in here and there, but it also takes a bit for enemies to actually appear, so a lot of your time is spent almost solely on exploring. After you finally do meet your first enemy, you'll find that enemy variety itself isn't much of a thing. The first few enemies might seem awkward at first, but you'll find that they aren't too difficult to dispatch with melee weapons. With the other types of enemies, you'll just need to keep a distance and fire away with your gun. I did still get surprised on occasion, but that was mainly due to some small spaces. Fortunately, the item-based puzzles do offer a bit more variety. There is a use for the inspect and combine functions that doesn't make these puzzles just end up being as simple as use item A at location X, and the logic puzzles may need you to look around the environment for clues. If there's one definite thing to give praise for me, is that I found the game does a great job of keeping the mood feeling tense. The files you pick up start to paint a picture that something sinister has happened here, and along the way, creepy phone calls with a stranger in the empty city are your save points. This kind of ambiance sticks throughout Hollowbody. You'll traverse past destroyed streets, a residential district, a park, etc. And even though the graphics may be crisp, they're kind of bland, but the mood is able to stay creepy and tense. Although there is a particular section in the game that felt intense to me. The story does try to keep the general creepy tone, but it's the environmental aspects that does the heavy lifting. Your motivation for the search for Sasha does appear as select memories after certain points, and the creepy phone calls will let Mica vocalize that, but it's the notes and optional lost signals that may keep you engaged in between. To add to the atmosphere, the radio does begin to create static when enemies are nearby, but nothing much really stood out to me for sound and music. There wasn't much to take note about the voice acting either. There was something that stood out to me about the game balance. The amount of medical repair sprays you gain in the early game seems very small in comparison to the rest of the game. Ammo in comparison seems fair if not too plentiful, but your only form of healing seems really nerfed in availability compared to the mid-game and after. That's not saying the game is difficult, but it's odd that the early game allows for less leeway than anything after. Hollowbody gets off to a slow start, but it does set the ambiance as soon as you gain control of Mica, and that continues throughout the run of the game. I do think that, despite its original story and some narrative design choices, there's not much that Hollowbody does to set itself apart from its inspirations. The semi-futuristic setting does some interesting things aesthetically, but it's primarily used as a narrative device. There aren't any puzzles or anything of interest gameplay-wise I can think of that took that part of the setting into account. For those of you who are looking for a gameplay experience that's almost entirely based on the survival horror games of the early 2000s, then I think Hollowbody is a good fit for you. It is short, but its mood is well handled and consistent with occasional intense moments. It does offer a New Game Plus mode, multiple endings, and bonus items upon completion, so it does have added value there. But that's it for me. Let me know what you think below. Thanks. Bye.